Mr. Shanmugam, President Teo Lee An. I was going to say Excellency, but there's only one Excellency here, so I will just address her by name. The Ambassador of Finland, Satu Matila, and friends on the diplomatic call. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank the new director of the Institute of Policy Studies, Janadas, for inviting me both to be the first speaker and to moderate the Q&A session. I will set a good example by speaking within my time of 15 minutes. After the three of us have spoken, then we will have a question and answer session. At 10 minutes to 6, I will conclude the Q&A session and give to each of the three of us 3 minutes to sum up the thoughts that we wish you to take home to your spouses this evening. So let me just begin by sharing with you my thoughts on the role, the function, and the power of the elected president. I would also like to try to crystallize a debate that's taken place in the forum page of the Straits Times. Began a few days ago by a good friend, Mr. Ho Kwong Ping, and responded to by Professor Wan Y.E. of the Singapore Management University. So here are my thoughts. First, the elected president of Singapore is the head of state of Singapore. He is not the head of government. The head of government of Singapore is the Prime Minister. In some countries, like the United States and Philippines, the two offices are merged. But in the case of Singapore, the two offices are kept distinct and separate. So we have a head of state and a head of government. The president is the symbol of our state. He is above partisan politics. And for this reason, the law requires him not to be a member of a political party. And if he had been a member of the political party, he had to resign from that party. His role, the president's role, is to unify all Singaporeans. Second, our elected president is not merely a ceremonial head of state. In many countries in the world, the head of state, although much loved by the people, has no substantive power. This is not the case in Singapore. In Singapore, our constitution has invested in the elected president 5 specific powers, and I'll briefly enumerate the 5. First, he has a power to veto a proposal by the government to spend the state's past reserves. That's the first power. The second power, the power to veto the proposed appointment of individuals to certain key positions in the public sector or to remove such persons. So, to give you an example, if the cabinet were to submit to the elected president a person who, in the view of the president, is not qualified to be the next Chief Justice of Singapore, we would want the elected president to veto that proposal. Third, the president has a power to order the release of a person detained under the Internal Security Act if the advisory committee under the Act recommends that he be released. Fourth, the president has the power to overrule the Prime Minister if the director of the Corrupt Practices Investigation Bureau, CPIB, wishes to continue to investigate an individual and the Prime Minister is not in favor of his doing so. So the President can overrule the Prime Minister and support the CPIB. And finally, The President has a power to overrule the Cabinet under the Maintenance of Religious Harmony Act. If the Presidential Council on Religious Harmony recommends against the imposition of a restraining order on an individual against whom the government wishes to impose such an order. Take, for example, if you are a Protestant pastor and you have been making scurrilous attacks against the Roman Catholic Church, and the Minister of Home Affairs feel that you are a threat to religious harmony in Singapore and proposes to impose a restraining order against you, and if the Presidential Council is not in support of such a proposal, the President can overrule the Cabinet. So these are the 5 areas in which the elected President has been invested with power by the Constitution. Third, I want to highlight the President's role in diplomacy. This is not written in the Constitution, but in my view, it flows logically from his role as a head of state. You see, all ambassadors accredited to Singapore present their letters of credence to our President. All of Singapore's ambassadors to foreign countries obtain their letters of credence from the President. And when a foreign political leader visits Singapore, and if the leader is of a certain level, he would normally request a call on the President. For these reasons, it is not wrong to say, as I have said, that our current President, President Nathan, is Singapore's #1 diplomat. He complements the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister in promoting Singapore's external relations. The President must, however, act in accordance with the advice of the Cabinet. He has no power to pursue an independent foreign policy. But acting in accordance with the advice of the Cabinet, the President, our current President, has been tireless in promoting Singapore's external interests. In his 12 years in office, he has traveled 150,000 miles, visited 28 countries in order to show our flag and to win friends and business for Singapore. I also believe that it is not against the Constitution for the President to exercise his soft power to support good causes in Singapore. President Nathan has initiated the President's Challenge and has raised over $100 million to support charity. He has also lent his support to many causes, for example, through his patronage and in his gracing the fundraising and volunteer appreciation functions. The President has also used the prestige of his office to honor those who have distinguished themselves in such areas as the arts, the environment, etc. Finally, President Nathan has also started an annual occasion on which the country would recognize valuable Singaporeans who contribute to our society in vocations that do not pay as well as banking or the administrative service. And I mean, for example, teachers, nurses, social workers. I think these are wonderful initiatives that the President has undertaken. Let me now refer briefly to the dispute between Ho Kwon Ping and Wan Wai-ee over the President's role as the voice of the people. Those who support Kwon Ping's view could rightly point out that our President should not be compared to the Queen of England, who has inherited a throne, or the President of India, who is elected by the Parliament. Our President is the only office holder in Singapore who is elected by the whole electorate. The President of Singapore, Therefore, in Kwok Peng's view, and I quote, in order to be sure I'm on record and straight, and I quote him from the Straits Times of 23rd July, page A47. These are Kwok Peng's words. The elected president possesses the popular mandate to speak out on issues, so long as they are not politically partisan views, unquote. Those who don't agree with Kwok Peng and support the view of Professor Wan Wai-ee would argue that the present mandate from the people who have elected him is to give him the moral authority to exercise the 5 specific powers I enumerated earlier. They would argue that it is unwise for the president to speak out on other issues because he has no constitutional authority to do so, and speaking out may bring him into collision with the government. President Nathan has said to me that where he has views on policy and other issues, he has not hesitated to share them to the government, but in private. As you know, the practice is that he has a weekly meeting with the Prime Minister, and he also meets with other ministers. So speaking out publicly would have created, in President Nathan's view, another center of political power, which was not the intention of our Constitution. So perhaps President Nathan's way is the middle path between Kwok Peng's view and Wan Wai-ee's view. I conclude with these remarks and look forward to a rigorous and reasoned discourse later on. Thank you.